It is time for the RBC Canadian Open Breakdown. Welcome everyone to Tea Time. I am Andy from WagerTalk.com, being joined as always by my fellow golf betting expert, Nick Borman. We're going to break down Canadian Open on a course I believe we've only seen one time on the PGA Tour, and it was the Fortinet, like kind of an obscure tournament, Nick. So I would say we don't have a whole lot of course history to go off of here. So exciting Memorial Tournament. Congratulations! If you were on Scotty, weren't you?
I
You
was.
just yeah. I'm jealous. I'm jealous. You played it right. 3-1 is a discount. It feels like at this point. So
Correct.
yeah, it's. Are you like me that you're mad that you didn't save your Scotty Scheffler and our one and done for
Yeah,
later
yeah.
in
Well,
the
listen, it worked
season?
out great. Sepp Straka killed it for me in a solo third, so that was a nice cash
you
for me. But
you
yeah, of
crushed
course.
it. Yeah, you crushed it. We're gonna do our one and duns real quick. We're gonna break down the course. We're gonna go over some long shots, some Draftkings Darlings, players that can trip you up, and of course we'll go over the total strokes gain. Yeah, great pick on Sepp Straka on the one and done. Morikawa was decent. I would have liked a little bit more. You've retaken the lead here, so you get to go first. Who is your one and done for this week?
Well, this week being a not a signature, not a big money event, I'm going to save the top of the list, which honestly, I've already used Rory anyway, and it falls off pretty quickly from there anyway. So I'm going to go down the list a little bit to Keith Mitchell. He's got length, which the course is playing long. It's a par 70. We'll get into the course in a little bit, but it's nearly 7,500 yards, so you're going to have some length. And then he's been pretty hot. He did miss the cut at the PGA, but before that, he had 5 straight top 20 finishes. His iron play has been pretty solid this year, and again, as long as he's actually the PGA Tour leader this year in first round scoring. So if you want to bet a first round leader, I like him to play well. I don't think he wins. I don't think clearly it showed not too long ago with the Truist where he's in contention at the end. He's not going to quite have the finish that somebody else will. But in this tournament, unless you get the winner, you're not getting the big $1 million amount for your one and done. So it's okay. Everybody's going to kind of fall into a small range. So I'm hoping for a top 10 on him, and I think that'll be a pretty good week. So I'm going to go with Keith Mitchell.
Fun fact: I have a friend of mine. Shout out to Jay. He's the sole reason why I'm at Wager Talk. He asked Grok on Twitter on X for a first round leader a few weeks ago, and it said Keith Mitchell, and he hit a
Yep.
45-1 ticket.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
shout out. I'm gonna go with Sam Burns. He's all of a sudden caught fire, Nick. He was awful in the middle part of the year, and I'm looking at his finishes: 12th, 19th, 30th, 5th, 13th. So his putter lights out,
Yes.
absolutely lights out over the last 3 months. Number one in
Yeah.
this field, probably number one on tour. So
I think
this is
he
a
is.
long
Yeah.
course. Long course. We'll get into it. So he's decent enough off the tee, but that putter, if it gets hot again, then and I just can't see why I would use Sam Burns at an elevated field. So we'll take
No.
we'll take him this week. So all right, Keith Mitchell and Sam Burns, those are your one and dones. If you guys could hit the like button, it really helps the algorithm out. You guys know I ask you this every week. You guys are doing fantastic in the comments section. Really good tips, some really good picks in there. So keep them coming. We love reading those comments and seeing what you're on. Of course, we're gearing up for for the U.S. Open right around the corner. But I really like this Canadian Open. I like where they put it. It always seems to be exciting. I feel like the courses, Nick, and they do a really good job selecting these courses. And this TPC Toronto North course, I think it's got some teeth to it. I think this is going to be more difficult than you would expect from a tournament, right after the Memorial, like in between the U.S. Open. This is no cupcake course. They've lengthened it to a 7,389 yard, but it's playing at a par 70. And my takeaway is there's some shorter holes, and then everything else is long. So you've got like a 375-yard par four. The first hole is a real short, like par five, and then you got another hole that's really short, and then you got like a 150 or 160-yard par three, and then you've got these 500-yard par fours, these 480-yard par fours. I think, and they said that the rough is going to be about 4 inches thick. What's your take on this one? Because and by the way, their website does have flyovers. You can get a great look at this course. So shout out to them. You can get a really good look at all these holes. I was surprised. I walked away and I said, I think this is going to be more tough than people might realize. What's your take on this course?
Yeah, Andy loves his flyovers for sure, which is a cool cool way to experience the course. Yeah. It is, obviously it is difficult. We don't know. A lot of what I've gathered is just by PGAtour.com and they're publishing and a few other articles. But this is the first time that the PGA Tour is hosting this event. The Fortinet, I think you referred to before, was called the Fortinet Cup. It was a PGA Tour Americas event, which is the third tier. Right? You got PGA Tour, Korn Ferry Tour, and then that one. So according to the PGAtour.com, only 4 players in this entire field have played any sort of competitive sanctioned event here. Obviously, people could have played it any other time, but in any sort of competition, only 4 players. I don't even know who those 4 players are. I know one of them because I'm going to talk about them later. Other than that, it sounds like it could be tough. They're talking about it as an actual good prep week for the U.S. Open because it's going to play very, very difficult. They're expecting rough to be up to 6 inches by the end of the week, Andy. It's at 4.5 to start the week, and they're not touching it. So that's where they're kind of expecting it to be like a U.S. Open. The fairways seem to be about average as far as width goes. Nothing crazy there. Green sizes are even about average. So it's really just going to be if you miss a fairway, you're going to pay an ultimate price is what it sounds like. And that's what we're used to seeing from a U.S. Open type of situation. Of course, you get around the greens, too. We saw this at the Memorial last week. These guys are going to rather be in a bunker than be – it's very hard to hit a 20-yard pitch shot trying to make a hack out of really, really deep rough. So I think we're going to see some struggles around the greens as well, like we did last week. And, of course, what you'd see at the U.S. Open. So with nothing else to go on, you got to go with ball strikers. You got to go with guys that are there. My experience on these courses where you get the first time around or most of the field not seeing them is putting generally becomes a little less of a metric where I'll say it levels the playing field. People have it takes the guys that are really good that know all the nuances of some of the greens and brings them down a peg, which then, by default brings the guys that really stink up a little bit, but it doesn't always work out that way. But other than that, Andy, I don't have a lot on the course. Again, it is new to us. We're going to find out some, but it sounds to me like it's going to play. I agree with you. It's going to play pretty difficult. I find it interesting. The only 2 par 5s on the course are the first hole and the 18th hole. So you got 16 straight par 4s or 3s. I'm going to be paying attention to guys that are, par 4 scoring because there's technically 2 more in play this week than par 5s. And I'll talk about that a little bit too as well. And there are 6 par 4s that measure at least 480 yards, 3 of them over 500 and 1 up to 530. So it's going to be long for these guys. A lot of long approach shots coming in.
Yeah, they're trying to make the 14th hole kind of a party hole. And I actually think Canada's done a good job with this. Sometimes I hate, not sometimes, most of the time I hate when they try and force recreating, the Waste Management Open. But Canada does it up good. So I'm expecting some hockey jerseys and some good partying on the par 3 14th hole. So we'll see how that manifests itself. So let's take a look at the favorite hole. I wanted to get your opinion on this one, Nick. I'm going to go with the 15th hole. It's 434 yards, par 4. Really fun hole here. So this picture, you're looking at the drive. Nick, I think most are going to go to the left of that big-ass tree right there. Would you consider trying to thread the needle on the right?
I don't. Again, how deep is that rough? Right. That's going to be what
brutally thick.
It looks. The fescue area looks pretty long. So, how is it right to the right of that tree? And what is the carry? Like Rory, can he just go right over it? It's not like it's not even there. Not many will be able to, but if there's one guy, it might be Rory that can just fly
the
that
tree.
Thing, otherwise, probably not.
On the fly over, the tree looks pretty tall, so I think a carry over the tree would be tough. I'm just saying, if you can thread the needle on the right, you leave yourself with a small gap wedge coming into the green on that dog leg to the right. So that's why I love it. I don't know if anybody's going to try it, but I'll be interested to see. It's just that gap. I was like, oh man, I bet somebody's going to try it. So most of the drives are going to go to the left of that tree, but you got to be careful because if you pull it, you're in the thick rough. There's fescue off to the right. There's thick rough off to the left here. The green protected by a bunker on the right-hand side, but it's a pretty basic green. So I think this drive is the most interesting drive on there besides the 18th hole, which we're going to get into. So yeah, the 15th hole, 434-yard par 4. That really struck my eye. So a lot of fun holes. I had to narrow this down. I had like 4 or 5 that I really, really liked here, Nick. So I think this course is going to be a pleasant surprise visually to people. So I'm excited to watch it. Let's go to the 18th hole. Yeah, Nick said the first and the 18th hole are the only ones. So the guys that tee off on 10, Nick, they play them back to back.
Oh, that's true.
So you get up, you got back to back 2 shots at the par 5s, and then all of a sudden it's over. Meanwhile, if you tee off on 1, you got to come out of the gates like really strong, and then you got to wait until the very end. I like this. I don't like par 5s as the finishing hole, but I like this one. It's 581 yards, par 5. When you look at the pictures, it doglegs to the right, but guys aren't going to shape it. They're going to be going straight up over, kind of the dog leg. If you miss it to the right, there's deep rough, there's bunkers, and the fairway's elevated, so it falls off. So it's pretty much guaranteed a layup. Even if you do it the fairway, this is a tough green to get to. There's water in front. The easy shot is going to be a bailout to the right, which is going to land probably in the fairway, leaving yourself, 15, 20 yards for an up and down. So this is not exactly a guaranteed, easy, straight birdie, fest. This is kind of a tough par 5. So there is the potential for drama. There's trouble to the right off the tee. There's the water. There are bunkers long and to the right. So this is no gimme for a birdie. So I actually think this could be a little bit dramatic on Sunday if we get a couple guys that are tied going into the last hole. So I give it a 5.8. I like this hole. It's a good finishing hole, and I normally don't like the par 5s. So. Again, guys, hit the like button. We got a lot of great things going up at Wager Talk on the YouTube channel, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. That way you get notified with all these videos. We're calling it the dog days of summer, but Nick and I are going to be here every single week to break down, these golf tournaments. Listen, why some of these sports are dying down, golf is ramping up. Mm-hmm. We're getting down to the nitty gritty, the big ones in the championship. So this is a go time for us, isn't it, Nick?
Yeah. The next 3 months, really through August, is it's good golf tournament after good golf tournament, other than the John Deere Classic. Sorry, John Deere.
Well, let's go to the total strokes gained. I almost like these more than the elevated fields. We get to take a look at some names that we don't normally see on here. So walk us through here. What do you take away from the last 12 months, 6 months, and 3 months for total strokes gained?
Well, as I've touched on to start this segment pretty much every week, is in the signatures and the majors, you stick to this list because it's proven to be the winner, Scotty again. I mean, to be fair, Scotty and Rory have won 6 of these this year. So, that takes up a huge chunk of the fact that only, I think it's 9-1 now between signatures and majors have been in the top 10. But every other event on the entire calendar year, there's only been one winner out of the top 10 in the regular tour events. It was another Scotty win. So chances are you might go down the list here and you might get an outside surprise. But these are the guys that have been the most consistent over the last 12 months. Rory obviously leading the way here as the biggest name in the field. Notably this week, you have obviously a lot of Canadians in the field. It's a Canadian Open, so they save space just for certain qualifying paths from hometown heroes, as we like to call them. So there's 21 Canadians in the field this week. They do get usually more attention because it's Canadian Open. They're going to push to do well here. Nick Taylor won 2 years ago. We all remember the scene on 18 where the security guard tackling his buddy, whole situation, pretty hilarious. But that was the first time a Canadian won since 1954. So it's rare, to say the least, that a Canadian actually does win. Corey Connors took home honors last year as low Canadian. He finished tied for 6th. So usually you're going to get a couple guys that finish well, but to actually win has proven to be tough for the Canadians. And then Taylor Pendrith is the other name I just wanted to throw out as a Canadian this week to look at. He's actually been struggling a lot since February, but just ripped off a tie for 5th at the PGA Championship and a tie for 12th at Muirfield. He's on this list here. We're currently ranking number 8th over the last 12 months, but kind of come alive the last 2 starts he had. And then right below him, Luke Clanton. He's been on this list a few times, Andy, as an amateur. This is his professional debut, which he's listed at either 35-1 or 40-1 at most books as a 21-year-old debutant. So I think that's a little ridiculous, and you might want to hold off on him right now. I get it. He's got all the talent in the world and will be good at some point, but that's pretty low for a 21-year-old rookie. Aside from that, Ludvig, gosh, he's been going the wrong way. You've touched on him a lot. If you're going to touch on him again this week, I wouldn't be surprised. I added Tom Kim on this list as a notable, mostly because he's a guy that you can clearly see in the graphic you do not want to touch. I find it interesting. I've been doing deeper dives into this. So I've talked about the trends on you got the 12 months, the 6 months, and the 3-month columns here, Andy. One thing, if you dive deeper into this and you go further down the list, I think the one trend that's important to know in these full field events, the winner, 2/3 of the time, so 66% of the time in these full field events, the winner has trended up over the last 6 months or 3 months compared to their 12-month number. So you got to get a guy that's going the right direction most of the time to get these. You don't get the guys that are, on the downward slide. That would be on this graphic. That would be like a Tom Kim. He's trending the wrong way. It makes sense to want to avoid a guy like that. Even Ludvig, as it shows here, 12 months, he looks pretty solid, but he's dropped in the 6 months and dropped in the 3 months. So far, current trends are telling us avoid guys like that as far as winners go. They're not to say they couldn't have a decent week, but that's my notes here on the top 10 strokes gained. I will be certainly throwing a few guys on the that are on this list in my pack this week because it is a week you can take a little deeper dive into some of the long shot odds.
Yeah, listen, I was going to use Ludvig again and players that can trip you up, but I use him every week. So I'm just telling you, I'm not betting on him. I know he got credited with a 16th place finish, but I believe that was just one monster round.
Yeah.
I just don't think his game is there yet. So we are going to go into players that can trip you up. And like I said, I'm still fading Ludvig. I'm not betting on him, but I need to shake things up a little bit because we need to get some more likes on this channel. So let's go to players that can trip you up here. 3 guys that I think are a little bit overpriced that I think can give you problems here. We all love Shane Lowry. His lack of distance off the tee is really concerning for me, Nick. The course plays long, especially on the par 4s, and his last 3 months, his putting is plus 0.03. So I have a guy who's not driving the ball very long, and his putting is not very good, and to me that spells disaster on this course. So probably good on the shorter holes, but man, I worry about him being able to birdie these par 4s and these par 5s. So Shane Lowry's priced really, really high. I get it. He's a big name. I won't be playing him this week. Also, Robert MacIntyre, I bring him up because he's the Canadian Open defending champion, but make sure we realize that was a different course. Again, not that long off the tee, and his short game, he's losing strokes around the green minus 0.07. So I think on a lot of these holes, if you're not driving the ball that long, your approaches are going to be long, which means you're going to have to get up and down, and he has not been very consistent with that. So looking to fade these guys that are not long off the tee, and their short game is a little bit concerning. So Robert MacIntyre is another one that I'm not going to be betting on. And then Sung J M, Nick, he gave us the rope-a-dope. It looked like he was turning the corner. 5th and 11th there in the middle of the season, and then his last 4 starts, 16th miscut, 23rd, 33rd. Just to me, a clear step backwards, and the biggest red flag is approach. Nick, minus 0.57 on approach over the last 3 months.
That's not good.
That is stunningly bad. Like, that's in the bottom 20 of this field. So, you got to be good with your irons, and that's a deal breaker for me. I think he's priced way too high. So I'll be looking to fade Sung Jae at some point, unless his irons improve, which it has not throughout the course of the season. So Shane Lowry, Robert MacIntyre, and Sung Jae Im, those are 3 players that I think can trip you up. Let's get into your favorite. Before we do that, Nick, tell everyone what you have up at wagertalk.com for clients.
Sure. This week we have the PGA Tour pack up and available right now, and we'll have MLS selections for the weekend. Quiet during the midweek this particular week. When it comes to soccer, next week is the FIFA Club World Cup, which was a lot of fun. It's an interesting tournament this year with teams from all over the world, including your big European clubs, all playing against even like your Inter Miamis, which will be fun to watch. Messi playing against his old European buddies. But that competition kicks off next week, so I'll have a lot of plays in a package up by the end of this week for that specific tournament. But this week's pretty quiet. Otherwise, we got golf, and we'll have MLS up as the week goes on.
Love it. Let's take a look at your favorite. Kind of tough to pick one. Not the obvious big names that we're used to. So who are you gravitating towards?
Yeah, I'm going to go right against, of course. There's not many times in the show that we go directly against each other. When we do, full disclaimer is usually Andy's right. So take that for what it's worth. But Shane Lowry, the reason I like him of the favorite, when I mean favorite, Andy knows this, but if it's first time watching, I usually try to pick one of the top 10 odds guys as my favorite, choose one of those. Rory would be a skip this week at his short price, hasn't been in good form coming off the Masters win. It's just been a whirlwind of, a different 6-week pattern than he's ever used to. Plus, if anything, this is a prep for the U.S. Open for him. But Shane Lowry, why I like him this week, you mentioned his lack of length, which I'm going to get to in a second because you're right about that. But I think it actually helps him oddly here. What he's very good at is his iron play, particularly his long irons. He actually ranks third this season in strokes gained approach and third in proximity to the hole. So we know a lot of long irons are going to come into play here. I mentioned those 6 par 4s that are 480 yards or longer. He's going to be hitting long irons. You're going to have 5 irons, 4 irons in these guys' hands, and he's proven to be one of the better ones on tour in hitting those clubs. He also ranks second this season in strokes gained tee to green, behind the only guy, the one guy that's not in the field this week. I don't think I have to even mention his name. So obviously very, very good company there. And then when he does miss around the greens, his short game is very good, and it has been for years. Currently this year, he's 22nd in strokes gained around the green. You go back years past, he's always up in that top 25, top 30 area with his short game. Very creative, very good in that area. Overall scoring, Shane has the 10th lowest scoring average on the season. But this is my stat that I like, that the deep dive that I was like, you know what? You're right, Andy. He does have a little bit of lack of length, and where it's shown that it's hurt him this year is the par 5s. So unlike the rest of the tour that can take advantage of those par 5s generally because of their length, he's 138th in par 5 scoring this season. But what do we have this week that's a little different? Well, we only have 2 of them, right? So 2 less, technically 8 less holes over the course of the 4 days that the rest of the field takes better advantage of than he does are not there for them to take better advantage. So does that help him by default? That's kind of my thinking. He ranks 14th in par 3 scoring and 39th in par 4 scoring. So maybe not great on their own merit, but the fact that his biggest weakness in my mind is reduced this week, I think sort of becomes an advantage, at least in theory. So that's kind of why I like the idea that, all right, the length has hurt him, but it's really been hurting him on the par 5s, the ability to get there in 2 or close enough to really throw wedges in there tight. So aside from that, pretty solid overall results. 8 top 20s this season, including 4 top 10s, 2 runner-ups. Unfortunately, he's still searching for that first win on U.S. soil since 2015. So we're asking a lot here, I suppose. And though this is obviously a different course, he has shown up in Canada a few times. He plays this in the last 6 editions of the Canadian Open. He does have three top 12 finishes. And, it's like a U.S. Open. It moves around the country, so it's, hard to really look at course history. But as far as tournament history goes, he's got a little bit there. But overall, good form. And again, I'm going with the premise that, I think his biggest weakness is negated. I don't want to say negated, but reduced this week. And maybe that helps him.
We need Shane Lowry to make this absolutely no question who was right and wrong. We need him to miss the cut.
He's a winner.
Second. Yeah, don't finish 19th.
I know. Does that count? I don't really know.
So, come on, Shane. Declare a winner on this one. So, favorite. Stay tuned for Nick's long shot, because it's the longest long shot of the season by far, hands down. We're going to do Draftkings Darlings. We're running a special here this week, guys, on totals. We talked about the dog days of summer, and a market that we've started to really capitalize in is team totals. We've done this in college football the last couple years, and we hit 60% of those. Huge moneymaker for ourselves and clients. And we've just started this year in WNBA and MLB. And what happened, we're combined 15-6 in those 2 sports. And we're on a 19-3 run in total. So we decided to run a special just on totals. Very unique special. We've never done anything like this, but this is something that we're going to focus on over the next 3 months. So you want to try 30 days of our totals. We marked it down to $149. Normally 30 days of plays is $300. So $149, you're going to get all of our totals, and we're focusing on team totals in those 2 sports, MLB and WNBA. We have 2 of them up today on Tuesday. So I'm looking at probably 6 to 7 plays per week. So it's a really good value. We're hitting at a very high rate. And again, we think these markets are soft. We've shown we can do this in college football, and now we've shown success in WNBA and MLB. So we'll have our golf plays up, but what are we really focusing on that we bet with our own money and my own money? It's going to be these team totals. So try us out for 30 days, $149. We're hitting at a really, really nice clip. I expect that to continue. So that's over at my page, wt.buzz/AL. And join us on the fun and the profits on team totals. Let's take a look at our Draftkings Darlings. Nick, when you have Scotty Scheffler and Sepp Straka in your lineup last week, you're going to do good. So we finished 45th out of 200. This has been one of the best, if not the best, years of DraftKings. Like we're cashing in 2 or 3 and then not cashing in 1. So this has been really good. We entered a tournament in 200 people, finished 45th. So we're moving on to this week, and this is a rough one. We're going to roll the dice with some guys that do not have great stats, but, we got to pick some of these guys. We'll start with Anton Rosner at 6,900. This is by far my favorite. Only 1 missed cut this season. That was his first tournament of the season. 9 made cuts in a row. So you have my attention at 6,900. Great length off the tee, bad putting, but really good approaches. So that, to me, that's good enough to get you to the weekend. Drive the ball long, get you to the green, 2-putt, get out of there with your par. I actually think par is probably going to make the cut this week. So Rosner at 6,900. I'll go with Kevin Roy at 7,000. Not a lot of upside, but he's made the cut in 5 straight tournaments. Good length off the tee. I can't really point to great stats anywhere else, but 5 made cuts in a row. Just make the cut for a 6th tournament in a row in a weak field. And then move on to Vincent Whaley at 7,400. I do like this one. I do think he does have upside. 4 straight made cuts. He had a slew of missed cuts in a row, but something has clicked. His last few finishes, 7th, 15th, 37th, and 11th. So not only is he making cuts, he's showing us upside. Long off the tee, plus 0.24 approach, and plus 0.51 putting in the last 2 months in that run. So absolute steal if he keeps those numbers up. So Anton Rosner, Kevin Roy, Vincent Whaley, those are going to be your DraftKings Darlings. And as always, my full lineup is on my page, wt.buzz/AL, same page that we're doing the team total special. It's a free digital download. It gives you the course write-up, the players that can trip you up, DraftKings Darlings, and it gives you my full DraftKings lineup for this week. So, all right, Nick, I cannot wait for you to talk about your long shot. This is an absolute doozy. Where did you find this player, and why did you settle on him?
Yeah, you're probably not going to know this name. Johnny Keefs, as I like to call him. Let's go. Johnny Reefer Kiefer. I'm sure he's dealt with that nickname.
Is that what you like to call him, Johnny Keefs?
I don't know. I just made it up. I don't know. You'll hear him talk about it on the broadcast this week. Oh, yeah, Johnny Keefs is made famous by Nick Warman on Tea Time. So full transparency here, Kiefer, if you do a little Google search on this week's picks, you will see a couple places that mention his name, and it's because he's one of those up-and-comers. He's a Korn Ferry Tour guy. He's getting a look this week and a special invite because of his recent success on the Korn Ferry Tour. Andy, there's no doubt we'll talk about him like an Eric Cole or somebody else next year because he's going to get his tour card. He leads the Korn Ferry Tour in points this season by a wide margin. He's been very, very consistent on that tour. He finished. He's got top 6 starts in 11 of 18 finishes on the Korn Ferry Tour this season. So he's just been very, very good. If you look at, I mentioned the course history or rather lack thereof at this event. In another deep dive, this is one of the 4 players that has history. We mentioned the Fortinet Cup, not the Fortinet Championship, but the Fortinet Cup Championship on the PGA Tour Americas. That again is the 3rd tier on these mini tours. So 2 seasons ago, Kiefer was on that tour, and this course hosts the season ender. So he played at this course in that season ender event. He finished 3rd. I don't think it really matters where he finished because that's the 3rd tier. It's a weaker field, obviously overall, but he played it and he finished well. So maybe there's a little bit of confidence there from that start. But aside from that, after you look at his results after that season. He got invited to play in the ProCure Championship at the end of that season. He finished tied for 13th, Andy, which is pretty solid. In his only PGA Tour start before this. So, although he's not a PGA Tour member, he likely will be next year. He did get 1 start. he didn't shy away from the moment. Tie for 13th in your first event, I think is pretty dang awesome. Rare to see guys that can do that on that very, very first start. So you're going to look into some of his stats. They're actually pretty good. He's known as one of the best ball strikers on the Korn Ferry Tour. And if you look up ball striking stats, he ranks #1 on the Korn Ferry Tour. So again, if we're using that premise as to what skill sets should thrive, I mean, ball striking is never going to hurt you anywhere. But on a place where you got a new field and you're not really sure, the rough seems to be pretty penalizing, I think you got to weigh a little heavier there. So a little bit of history here. Maybe he's got some confidence from playing on there. He's at least a little familiar with the greens, which I think is a bonus. But Johnny Kiefer, and to be priced, he's 70-1. You look at some of the guys that are lower hit than him on the boards, they're going to be names you've actually heard of and recognized. So the books are on to him. They're aware that he's playing very well. And again, if you follow golf on the next level down, he's not a completely unknown name. He is playing very well and dominating the Korn Ferry Tour right now. So top 10 is 550 and top 20 is plus 250. I want to mention on those odds, I really have been tracking a lot this season just to get an idea of, what's worth betting and what's not, because top fives for me for a while were like, I don't know, they're so hard to gauge. Top tens are tough. You need everything to go right to actually cash those type of situations. But Andy, on average, I wanted to throw out some stats for everybody here. 5.6 players a week in full field events cash top fives at over 10-1 odds. Okay. And that's weird. How does 5.5 players finish top five? Well, on average, 7.5 players finish in the top five because you got guys that are tied, right? So tie for 5th might extend all the way down to 7th or 8th place. So 5.6 players every week cash top fives at over 10-1. So it's not the favorites cashing. 8.1 cash in the top 10 at odds of longer than 5-1. That's Kiefer. So these 8 players in the field every week cash at these odds. And then 16 players cash in the top 20 at odds longer than plus 300. So when I say that and you're trying to wrap your head around what does that really mean, it means these type of full field events, there's a lot more, there's a lot more players that will make a cut and that you might not hear about week to week, but that will have decent finishes and are worth betting. You can go way down these lists and get these leaderboard bets. And I think Kiefer's a great play for plus 250 for a top 20 or plus 550 for a top 10. Will it necessarily cash? No, but if you can find 3 guys like that and you can cash one of them, you're going to have a great week every single week. So that's the kind of method I've been using recently, and the results as far as like what has actually cashed on average this season has shown that it's kind of the way to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you got to be looking at some of these longer shots on these fields. So obviously US Open, we fully expect the cream to rise to the top, and that's when you got to try and pick the favorites that you want to latch onto. But for this week, take a look at those Draftkings Darlings. Take a look at that long shot. Great deep dive there, Nick. Really appreciate it. And listen, it is important to know some of these guys coming from the Korn Ferry too, to know what you're going to get, when they get there. So
Matt McCarty won in the fall on his 2nd PGA Tour start ever, and he was the same kind of thing. Like, hey, this guy's killing it at the Korn Ferry Tour. He might be good. Immediately won a 2nd start. It can happen.
Yeah. Eric Cole. I mean, he's now over 8,000 in DraftKings. How much money did we make off of him?
He's not a darling anymore. What the heck happened?
No, he's a DraftKings stud. So, all right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Again, leave us a comment. Love seeing what you guys are betting out there. This is a field where you can get really creative with some of these bets. And honestly, you probably should get creative with some of these bets. The biggest name in the field, Rory, you got to wonder what's his motivation for this week. So, leave us a comment, and don't forget, huge week next week, and honestly for the next few months. So make sure you subscribe to the channel that we get notified when Nick and I release these videos. We're here to make you profitable all the way through the end of the Tour Championship. So appreciate you guys, and gear up for next week. But first, let's make this week a profitable one. Good luck on your plays, and we'll see everyone next week. Take care.